You haven't signed up for Connect? Are you nuts? You're missing out. You're really missing out. Click the button, pack your bags, call your account manager, grab your boots, and I'll see you this June in Nashville.
We are on a mission to save and revitalize independent pharmacy.
On the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast, you'll get actionable business advice.
Hear stories from industry leaders.
And share a laugh or two with us.
Fuel your passion for pharmacy.
One conversation at a time.
4,
3,
2,
1. Ignition.
Welcome to the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast. I am not your host, Jeff Key, and I am also here with not your co-host, Marsha Bivins.
Hi, I'm not the co-host today, but my name is Marsha Bivins, and I'm the Director of Marketing for PioneerRx. Today, the host of Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast is Doug Hoey. He is the CEO and Grand Pumbaa of NCPA, National Community Pharmacy Association. We are also joined today by Kraig McEwen. He is the CEO of RedSail. Doors closed, cameras are rolling and recording. So, Doug, kick us off. This is your show.
Yeah, well, thank you, Marsha. And as far as Jeff's promise that I be in control, that's not, no, it is, I guess, not request, but my conditions for doing the podcast is that, we started this reverse podcast. You guys invited me in to do it, and really related to the acquisition, the merger. Mm-hmm. And so this is the third one.
Yep, this is number 3.
You guys keep inviting me back, so I guess you're having fun with it. So I don't know why, but
it's our most watched podcast.
It is actually. Yeah.
Well,
so Doug, you're bringing quite a few fans.
That says something about the state of entertainment in our country, I suppose.
Well, let's see. Disease, war, inflation.
I don't think we quite fall into trashy TV. So
Jeff and I were just talking before this, saying it would be great if we could go back to traditional business and just worrying about competition, because so far the biggest issues we've had were an act of God and an act of war in this company.
Yeah, no, we're off to a great start in 2022. So maybe we can not think about those things for 45 minutes or so. But yeah, thanks for inviting me back. And just, as I've mentioned, I think the last few times that you guys have told me, and I appreciate it, that all the questions are inbounds and we're not talking about doing some puff piece, because, we at NCPA would have no interest in doing that. And you guys have been good sports about keeping with those kind of ground rules the last couple times. So, let's jump in. I'm actually going to repeat a question that I started. It's definitely the last one, the last podcast, maybe the last two. But one of the things that NCPA and its members, one of the concerns they had when they heard, now it's almost a year and a half, it's a year and 3 months since the acquisition of Pioneer, is that when a company gets acquired by private equity, and again, our members have seen this movie before, that it's not all good changes. And in fact, we've seen some bad changes when private equity came in, like not keeping the platform up to date, not continuing to innovate, and departures of some key personnel. So again, almost a year and a half into it, how would you respond to customer concerns about the acquisition of one of their primary practice tools? I mean, the platform they use every day. I've said before that there's really 3 things that a pharmacist is vital to a pharmacy operating, and one of them is their pharmacy management system. So, what would you say to people who are still concerned about the acquisition? Private equity coming into the acquisition.
I think we started off our conversation this morning with, if we weren't starting off this year with war and a pandemic, it would be a completely different conversation, to be a lot more positive. Private equity has not affected us at all. They've helped us grow. The thing that has affected us the most is the pandemic, and getting people, if they're not out from the pandemic, it's finding people to fill, to add to and help grow. But it's really just, that's been our struggle this year. Or really the last couple of months is we've had people out because they got COVID and trying to find bodies that want to work, but people are still too scared to actually be in person.
There's a lot of cool things that happen, and some of it is we feel robbed of some of the value that could have happened had we not been facing some of these other challenges. But I guess PDS was sitting in a restaurant and ended up beside a guy who was there by himself and ran in the private equity world. Matter of fact, he owns a private equity company out of New York, and he was talking about how all the people that he dealt with had moved to Florida, and so he was there in Florida seeing people he was dealing with, and we got to talking and about our experience and how we're with Francisco partners, and he was legitimately congratulatory to us of, hey guys, you guys ended up with the best, right? If there's any place for you to have ended up, that was really the right place. And still, when people ask me that question, owners come and go. I think Pioneer is better with the owner they have today than the owner that they have yesterday. The experience they brought to the table, the things they've done. They've left us alone a lot. So if I say, hey, the thing that they've really made better is QS1, you see a lot of improvements there in support and in improvements in the product, moving versions from 80 versions to just a couple where it actually can be supported, answering the phone in a timely manner. Kraig, you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, maybe a couple of things. Make sure you guys are the ones that should be answering it versus me. I can tell you what we've done. And so, factually speaking, Pioneer's got 30% more dollars to spend in R&D this year than last year. And so we are absolutely investing. I also would say, when we have a strategy, and I say I'm putting my private equity hat on. I don't work for Francisco Partners, but I've run businesses for them long enough that I feel like I might as well. We absolutely want to make changes. And so I try to be really honest with customers that if you think things aren't going to change, you're wrong. Now, hopefully the changes we're making are for the better, right? So we increase investment in Pioneer. We've made massive changes at QS1. Some would say great, and some wouldn't love it because we are actively shifting investment dollars. We're also investing probably 4 times more into R&D than any competitor in the market right now. I feel pretty comfortable making that statement. So in QS1, we've done a lot of things, right? We've improved support, we've improved the quality of the product, but I don't shy away from saying we're not going to work miracles with a product that is that age. What we're going to do is invest in a new platform. And so you're starting to see the fruition of that, right? So in Pioneer right now, we're beta testing what I would position as the world's most modern pharmacy switch and claims engine. We've totally reinvested in the Powerline switch, and we'll take that out to the market when we feel that it's the best in the world. We're launching a beta of the first long-term care SaaS PMS platform in the country that'll come to market in May. We made the commitment to that 2 years ago when we purchased QS1. We're going to do that. We've launched a bunch of clinical adherence programs because now as a business that has access to 10,000 pharmacies, the manufacturers will listen to us a little bit more, and we can bring solutions to the Pioneer base that, frankly, Pioneer couldn't have done on their own. But then besides that, we've said Pioneer's done some really great things. Well, we'll give more dollars to invest. We're not going to tell Jeff how to invest it. Jeff and the senior leadership team, which, by the way, it's the exact same leadership team that was here 18 months ago. They're the most innovative people in pharmacy today. We're not going to try to pretend that we know best on what Pioneer should be becoming from a feature set standpoint. That would be my answer.
Yeah, hey, Kraig, you mentioned QS1. You've made a lot of changes there, some that people would like, some that people wouldn't like. Maybe just run a couple of examples of on both sides, some that people you think really like, and on the other side too.
So I think people love the support. Factually speaking, the support is about 90% better when you look at all the different metrics. The call wait times, the backlog of calls, the backlog of technical debt used to sit at about 1,500 defects at any one given time. That's down under about 15 now. So we've invested a lot in product quality. We also obsoleted SharpRx. We told the customer base, there's 140 customers on SharpRx. You can't keep an experience for a customer with 140 systems across the country. And so we gave every one of those customers the chance to go over to Pioneer, or ultimately to stay on NRX, but the vast majority went to Pioneer. And so folks probably didn't love that we did that, but we can't, we're like any company, we don't have unlimited funds, so you have to choose where you think you can make the most impact. We think the most impact we can make is giving Pioneer more dollars to come out with more innovative features. We think that the market is going to be really happy with an alternative to switching in the marketplace and the services we can provide when you can fully integrate that technology into a PMS platform and a patient engagement platform. We think that the market needs a SaaS solution in long-term care. So we're making the choices to go there. And so as a result, we've told the NRX base, we promise you that we will do everything we can to keep that as high quality solution as we possibly can. We're not forcing you to go anywhere. We promise you we're not doing that.
Yep.
But we can't pretend that we can come out with the amount of features in NRX that you can in Pioneer. You can't. And so we're not going to pretend and try to spend money to do that. We're going to tell you, if you want the most feature-rich platform in the market, go to Pioneer. If you want to promise that you'll have a super high-quality system, we promise you we're going to do everything we can to make sure the support's pristine, you can absolutely stay on NRX. And we're going to continue to invest, but not at the rate that we will in Pioneer. So there's probably some customers that don't love that choice, but we think it's the right choice for the balance of our customer base.
Why are you guys keeping two separate platforms between QS1 and Pioneer? Why not just put them together? I mean, is it the LTC play, or why are you keeping two?
Yeah, let's be super honest. People don't like to be told what to do.
Yeah.
People don't like, you force people off. You force people from one thing to another. We see, there's another competitor in the marketplace today. There's a group that got out of pharmacy business and kind of pushed their business to somebody else. And we saw their net promoter scores go from what was close to ours to very, very low. And we talked to those people at trade shows, and they're pissed off and they don't like it. And they're moving to a decent platform. People just don't like to be told what to do. We ran into that in the early Pioneer days, where there was a previous product called Prism. We moved people. Some of those people are still mad at us because they remember, I knew every shortcut, I knew every way. I was the queen of the pharmacy, or the king of the pharmacy, and
that's the biggest thing that I've heard also with Linux-based users, is that I know every shortcut. I can fill a prescription in 5 keys, and they're not really it just tells. Those pharmacists are not interested in getting into clinical. They're just looking to fill the prescriptions and help the patient how they can, but they're not looking to really grow their business.
And technologically, you can't merge those platforms.
Right.
It's not that's not technologically feasible. So you have a choice to say, do we want to force a customer base to do something? And we don't need to do that. We don't think it's the right thing to do. The NRX platform is a very fine platform. I'm not trying to beat up the NRX platform.
Right.
But it's older. I mean, part of what you have to deal with if you want to run a good business is deal with the reality that you have in the business. And so we love the NRX customers. We're going to continue to support them. And we launch features in it a couple times a year, but we're not going to, picking on Marsha's point on clinical services, the best clinical services platform in the industry is Pioneer. There is also a pragmatic point to the long-term care play. The QS1 base, we always talk NRX. It's NRX and a product called Prime Care, which is a dedicated long-term care platform. I also wouldn't make the statement that I think every dedicated large-scale long-term care facility should be on Pioneer. I don't think that. that's a fair statement to make either. And so we absolutely are committed to the long-term care market, and we're committed to coming out with that product later this year.
Well, and to also add to what Kraig said in the beginning, that and to also answer your question, Doug, is that we did have another competitor that tried to mash their Linux and Windows-based system together, and it did not go well for them, and they abandoned it.
And there's some of that, people, there's also, Coke just doesn't sell Coke. Sometimes there's different flavors for people in different places. And
you decided not to do New Coke?
Decided not to do New Coke.
Decided not to do New Coke.
New Coke with your products? Got it.
Yeah.
We're sticking with the
for those of us
recipe.
old enough to remember New Coke.
New Coke.
And how that went.
I don't know, do you have any other insights for us? Is there other things that we're doing that we should know about?
Oh, yeah, I'll get to that in just a
Oh,
second.
he's got a list.
Uh-oh.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah, we're in the hot seat today,
Let's
Kraig.
get to the good stuff.
Now, I'm not going to come to this thing without talking to my members about, hey, how's it going for you? I mean, to Jeff's comment that, people don't like to be told what to do. Are you telling me that independent pharmacy owners don't like being told what to do?
Yes, I insinuated that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that might be true. I also noticed, just on the long-term care, I noticed that RedSail has started a new podcast.
Yeah.
Focused on long-term care pharmacies. Actually,
the Integrity X-Files, yes.
Yeah, listen to part of those.
You did, thank you.
Yeah.
Francis Nahas and Jim McDonald are doing a great job with those.
Yes. I have to mention that NCPA has a long-term care division. So when you're looking for future people to be interviewed, I might know some people.
We'll follow up with you on that.
A question. So on the culture, and Marsha, you brought up a really interesting point as far as whether it's the great retirement or being able to hire people, and just some of the really struggles that you've had, and you're not alone. I mean, just everyone across the country is having problems.
It's brutal.
It's nuts, and it's a common conversation piece that we've run into with multiple pharmacy owners.
Yes. Yeah. Well, tell us more about how it's impacting the operations at Pioneer.
I mean, hiring it slowed down for a little bit, and because a lot of people were out with COVID, and January we hired 10 new pharmacy.
Yeah, we've hired a lot.
We've hired a lot in the last 2 months, and it's just a matter of now we got to get them trained and up to speed. But COVID has really become a struggle for us.
Yeah.
When we've had people out for 2 weeks or.
Have customers noticed? Have any pharmacies? I haven't heard.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we sent out a letter here probably about a month ago, just letting everybody know what's going on. Our wait times are up on Pioneer. They're getting better. But
actually, they're about back to normal this week.
Yeah, we were down because of everybody and their brother. I talked to a pharmacy the other day. He lost 2 pharmacy techs because people were looking nationally for PioneerRx trained pharmacy techs to work from home.
That's the new thing that we're hearing.
And so you've got everybody's targeting these people to work from home. And so it's been a big challenge. We had to switch from a geographic hiring process to a national. We're now hiring pharmacy techs on a national wide basis just to get the number of people, because we use pharmacy techs for our software
for
support.
Yep.
We don't just hire somebody off the street and try to teach them pharmacy. And the positive of that is that we'll be able to hire more experienced people probably than we were to hire by limiting geographically. Some of the reason we resisted that when we were a smaller little company was just dealing with employment laws in 50 states, if you can imagine. But now with the resources Francisco Partners has, that's one of the things that's enabled us to do that. Hey, we can actually hire in multiple markets. And finally, one of the things we're going to do is probably overhire our ratios a little bit to try to focus on, because these will be newer people, they're going to need stronger training. And so that's been a challenge.
And figuring out the right model for remote versus in-person by function has been a challenge for us as well. People want to work from home, but people solve problems better together. Human nature hasn't changed just because of pandemic hit.
Yep.
And if you're trying to innovate a pharmacy platform and you've got a bunch of engineers working remotely, that's not the most conducive way to innovate in a lot of ways. But you also have to balance that with the needs, the safety needs, and the realities of a hiring market. And so we've really had to kind of experiment with between product support and development by location, different strategies to not only keep up productivity, but reduce employee attrition. We're not immune to that like any other business.
Yeah, I think every business across America is trying to navigate returning to work in person, and the balance, because I see very few businesses, well, not very few businesses, I see very few office and businesses going back to 5 days a week. And of course, people listening to this podcast are like, what are you guys talking about? I'm in the pharmacy every day. My people are in the pharmacy every day. This working from home stuff, where's the bonbons and the...
It's definitely really affected the hiring market.
Yeah, I tell you, and that's something that NCPA could play a role in. And I'm not, and also the organization, who's the organization that's the member of state pharmacy associations?
NASPA.
Because one of the things we're seeing pharmacies do is pharmacies are hiring remote techs. And they're just saying, hey, I know my local regulations don't allow it, but I don't have a choice. And, I remember early days in Louisiana, they were the defined area of the pharmacy. You couldn't have somebody working a computer in the office next door of what they defined that line, right? Because that was the pharmacy regulations. Whatever we approved was the pharmacy where everybody had to be. It's got to change.
Yeah. Well, it's another topic. For a presentation I did recently, was looking at the 5 trends to look for, and tech is one of the trends. I mentioned technology and technicians. It's probably a longer conversation, but I absolutely, I think it's something for listeners to keep an eye on, is that there's going to be a push for greater use of technology, greater use of technicians, especially in the face of really the disastrous scenes with the chain drugstores in the last 6 months, where so many patients were orphaned or left without their prescription because their chain drugstore, Walgreens, CVS usually, just closed, and the patient couldn't get their prescription.
Yep.
So that's going to create a big push for greater use of technology, greater use of technicians, some of which could be good, some of which could be really threatening to the profession.
We talk, I think that the communication tools and the communication technology between pharmacies, I think there's a vast amount of innovation we can bring to market to help with the change of practice there.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be important.
Well, and we have to, one things we're looking at there is really trying to move the pharmacist role sooner in the process to be more patient focused. So kind of, you see the thing in the world, the pre-check, right? Checking new scripts, but in that modus, having the pharmacist check the whole patient. And so the normal check station, where a pharmacist is used to being, where he checks it after the tech puts it in a bottle, tech can do that. They can do that all day long. And you got states now letting them do that. The piece the pharmacist needs to do is look at the whole picture of the patient, see what all are they taking, what's changed, what's weird, what should they be taking, recommend some OTCs, this kind of thing. And more of if you look at pharmacy systems were traditionally prescription focused. I just thought about one prescription at a time. Boom, here's the next script. Let me think about it. Here's the next script. Let me think about it. Trying to move to more of a EHR type focus where you start thinking about the patient first. And let me get an overview of the patient first.
I think that the bump and the struggle that we're going to run into there's some states that allow remote checkers. So the pharmacist isn't actually in the pharmacy checking that prescription. So they don't care about the patient further than I check the pill, that's the right, and move along.
Yeah, I think a person can care, hopefully, a person can care remotely just like they can locally. You're just going to have to, that's going to require investment in technology in order to make those things possible.
Yeah, and it's also going to require the pharmacist to start, what we did at the beginning was assign care workers. So this pharmacy tech is assigned to these 10 patients to care for and look after and help them with recommendations. But a pharmacist still has to make those recommendations, whereas the tech is the one making the connection point.
Interesting, very interesting. And I think the pre-check philosophy and looking at the patient holistically is an important development for us as pharmacists. So that'll be interesting to see, how those tools that you're providing and other systems are providing are going to enable the pharmacist to be able to again do that holistic check, So it's not only the prescription, but maybe they say that, talking with the patient, they need a blood pressure monitor. Jeff, you mentioned some OTCs. What other things might be going on with that patient besides that prescription that they're in there, in the pharmacy that day to pick up, or it's being delivered to them that day. Let me ask, Marsha, this is something you said at the last podcast. I was asking about the between Jeff and Kraig and their different personalities and how they were meshing.
The bromance.
Exactly. You described them having a bromance, and
I was really, really hoping that term just ended with.
No, not going away.
You were thinking that wasn't coming back?
No.
Nope.
No, I was thinking Benifer. So instead of Benifer, could it be like with Jeff and Kraig? Could that be Jag or
Jag?
Kray-J? Kray-J. I like Kray-J.
Kray-J.
So Kray-J, how's that going? Or Marsha, how's that going between Kray-J?
So sometimes I call Jeff in the mornings because I've got about 50 things on my brain that I want to get off my head as soon as before I walk in. And I got hung up on this morning for Kraig.
Yeah. Sorry. It's still, I say for me, it's still been a great learning experience, continues to be a great learning experience. We were talking today about processes and how, the normal nature of these things that come in and build a lot of processes, and he's tried to protect me from processes. And I'm like, well, that's exactly right. There are some processes that are good. And I love the vision of saying, hey, processes are bad, except when they're not, and let's just do them where we need to. So it really, Kraig has a very practical view of things, but has enough experience with some of the things. Everything done in the corporate world, even some of the things we detest, started off with something valuable, right? And then they just kind of got out of whack. And he has a good mindset for figuring those things out. Why do we do this thing why do we step over this place that we step over every day? Where there used to be a wire in the way or something?
So I'm going to add and kind of give you a candid, okay, Doug? Because that's what we're doing here.
I'm afraid.
So
Dish, Marsha, dish.
Kraig's first trip up here. I'm not gonna lie here. I was intimidated out of my freaking mind meeting him, and I'm.
Do you have a fear of bald people?
I'm married to a man going bald. That's not possible. No, everything, your experience that you were bringing in, and I'm like, oh my God, we're basically interviewing. I felt like we were re-interviewing for our jobs. Is this what this is? Is he evaluating us? Is he, leveling us up? I walked, and I probably said a whole bunch of stupid things in my first interaction with you because I was just that nervous and just that intimidated. But I walked away just in awe of his experience and everything that he was going to be bringing to us, that he has brought to the table and to Pioneer. And a lot of us kind of felt that way walking in. They're like, okay, what is this? Why is he here? And we all walked out of the room with the same feeling that this guy's awesome. And I can't wait to see the amazing things that he's going to help us do. So there you go, Kraig.
There you go,
Kraig.
Okay, what's the next question, Doug? This is starting to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, he started feeling comfortable.
So, so this is a question for all of you. So again, doing some prep for the podcast in advance, I reached out to some members and asked them, what are you seeing with the Pioneer QS1 products? And this comment came back to me that they believe that this person's opinion says Pioneer's product is the best. He then went on to say, I would say that they are still the industry leader in PMS, but they also know that. And ego, cockiness could get in the way of potential partnerships that could benefit pharmacy. So I thought, well, that's a pretty nice backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this person's comments?
So I guess I'll start. So, we have run into a couple of potential vendor partnerships that we looked at it and we're like, why we're already doing this in Pioneer? And maybe we need to reach out to that pharmacy and better educate them and somebody walk them through how we are already doing this. And some companies that we've approached, we went, okay, that doesn't make sense. How are you making your money though? And then they befuddled through their answers and it's like, I don't trust it. But they did a very good job on selling that pharmacy owner and making that pharmacy owner feel like they needed this product as much as they needed us. And so that's the only thing I can think that
There's a variety of reasons.
Those are my top two.
Yeah, sometimes it's just investing. It's just deciding what you're going to do and what you don't. What I love about my job and what I hate about my job is there's always way more to do than I can do. And, Marsha and I visit a lot of pharmacies. Kraig visits a lot of pharmacies, and they're always that have pharmacies that have niche needs, and you have to make a decision. One of the most recent one, I have a customer who wants a bunch of changes in an interface to a product that we have 150 customers on, and we have to figure out, how do you spend that money? Which product and interfaces do you invest in? Which ones do you want? What are going to make the most?
What's going to help the pharmacy make more money?
What's going to help pharmacy the most in that product? And I get one a day of a vendor who wants to integrate with us, who wants us to program an interface to them. And if that's the one that one pharmacy wants, they may feel, hey, we should have done it or shouldn't done it. And I don't know if I don't know if that's a cockiness. If you have 10 pharmacies and you have a product that affects 10 pharmacies, you invest in it. If you have 5,000 and you have a product an interface that affects 10 pharmacies, is harder to do.
Yeah, I maybe just add kind of two things. One is I think my view on Pioneer is that Pioneer is one of the most disciplined software companies I've ever interacted with, particularly in a go-to-market strategy. One of the challenges with any software company is you typically, unless you're in a declining phase, you typically have vastly more features that you could put in than you can afford to put in any one point in time. And having the courage to be really disciplined about what you think is most impactful, and having the courage to tell the customer that, it requires just an immense amount of discipline that most companies don't possess. Pioneer does. I also think Pioneer has developed the workflow that is the best workflow. And at times, it'll come across as cocky that we'll go in and advise a pharmacy, no, this is the way you should do it. The way you were doing it was not necessarily the best way. And we've seen 10,000 pharmacies, and we can do that. Maybe the second point is we can always get better at how we communicate that. And,
absolutely.
And sometimes that can come across as cocky.
Yeah.
It sounds like in this situation it did, but that's probably the area that we probably as a team can always get better at, is just kind of how we communicate the why and what we're doing.
That's a huge frustration for me, because if I talked to that guy on the phone, Doug, and that pharmacy and I had a conversation, he would understand our business. He would understand our heart and what our goals are, and how when your goal is to save independent pharmacy and what we're trying to do, that some things you can do and some things you can't. But I can't physically talk to every pharmacy. And that drives me nuts sometimes. It's one of the reasons of the podcast, still, hey, the podcast reaches 4,000 or 5,000 people. Every day I think, how could we better? Should I do a fireside chat? Should I do, how better can
We've talked about that.
I know, but how better can I get that experience with a pharmacy that I can get when I talk to them one-on-one for 10 or 15 minutes? Because there's always ways to be frustrated if you want to be frustrated, and people have lots of things to be frustrated about today.
And maybe we should go ahead and put that out there and capture these questions and just have like a quick, okay, here's a Q&A. So I've got a list of customer questions. Jeff, how do we approach this?
Yeah, something to think about.
So
another podcast. I don't think
this
comment was born out of anger or anything. It's just, I cast a net and said, hey, tell me how it's going. I'm getting ready to do a podcast. I'm not going to walk in there without to talk about our member experience without some member experiences. So.
And I think it's great. I love it. I love to hear every one of those somebody has. They frustrate me and drive me. So, you take both of those together.
This is on the RedSail website. And under its story, on the website, it says, with nearly 10,000 customers, RedSail Technologies is the leading provider of pharmacy software solutions. So, okay, that's what I would expect a company website to say. But then the next sentence says, we are committed to serving community. You're wondering what your website says, aren't you?
No, I've read it.
Okay.
Keep going. Keep going.
I hate it when people do that to me. I'm like, oh man, what did someone put on my website? They say this. So this says, we are committed to serving community-focused pharmacies, and our mission is to build the most clinically advanced and financially sustainable pharmacy networks in the country.
Yep.
So I'm focused on that word networks. Can you elaborate on what you're envisioning when you're talking about building networks with your pharmacy software solutions?
Yeah, I almost used that in the last question. I'm going to go back to Jeff's one speech. Long live independent pharmacy. Independent pharmacy's dead. Technology. I most fervently believe that technology is the singular thing that can save and revitalize independent pharmacy. I don't think it's regulations. I've never relied on the government to do anything good, and I'm not going to start now. And so our view of the network is that we've got to create a platform, both through the PMS system, our communication technology platform, our pharmacy switch and rules engine, that all the independent pharmacies that want to can sit on that, communicate within their pharmacy, across their pharmacy, and with their ecosystem in a super easy way that lets third parties, whether they be manufacturers or payers or the government, interact with that network without having to go reach each and every one of them. I think COVID taught us that as well. I think COVID taught us we've got a whole nother level of trying to put independent pharmacies on a network that they can access while still remaining as independent as they like, so that third parties can interact with them much more easily and efficiently. Because wake up call, they're not going to do it with each and every one of them. It isn't going to happen. And I also don't think contracts are the way to do it. I personally don't. I think for 30 years, people have been trying to contract with independent pharmacies to make them behave like one pharmacy. And that's never going to happen, in my opinion. So that's a bit of a winded answer to your question.
Yeah, and that concept that you can only drive consistent behavior through technology. So to be able to go and commit to something, and CPSN runs in this through a lot, right? Where they're trying to work with an interested party to provide some type of functionality. And in order to drive that in multiple places, it's almost got to be accidental. You almost have to fall into it. And so that's the concept of technology-driven network.
So a practical example, I won't disclose the name just yet, but so we just signed an agreement with a large manufacturer to help bring some vaccine solutions, not COVID related, vaccine solutions into the pharmacies. We're going to deliver that through our technology platform to the pharmacies, right? You don't have to contract for anything. It's just additional adherence type solutions and therapeutic delivery options. That manufacturer wasn't going to go around to 10,000 pharmacies to try to implement that. They wanted an easy way to roll that into the workflow for the pharmacy. And they're willing to do it. They're happy to provide that solution, and a better solution than independent pharmacies had, but they couldn't do it on 10,000 individual networks. It just wasn't going to happen.
So,
does that answer your question, Doug?
It gets to it. I mean, there's probably 10 other questions to ask related to that, because there's a lot of different networks out in the industry.
Yep.
And so how does this network interface with other established networks that are out there? I mean, I think that's a natural question.
Yep.
I don't know if this is the time or place to get in. I mean, well, it is the time. We're here. So
why not?
How does it interface with the other established networks in pharmacy?
Well, we've got connections to about 98% of the payers out there. So it depends what network you're talking about, I guess, is the question.
Probably the most natural one. I mean, you mentioned contracts. And so, PSAOs have networks of pharmacies through contracting entities. And that's, when we talk to payers, which we do pretty frequently from an NCPA standpoint, usually complaining to them, they'll say, where's your network? And I say, Got to talk to the PSAOs. They're the ones we don't negotiate contracts. I can't sign a contract that binds my pharmacies to anything.
Yeah, that's a contractual network that we're agnostic to. We'll work and interact with all of them, but we're not in the business of being a PSAO. I think if you actually build the communication platform appropriately over time, you're going to see pharmacies build real-time virtual networks together that'll pop up for a particular opportunity,
which is the CPSN model.
Yeah.
How does this and that's another one? How does it relate to the CPSN model, the network that you're building or have built?
If you look at how we have been, I think we've been trying to build upon it, right? So what is it? About 98% of the country's e-care plans that get submitted through CPSN are Pioneers, and that's 95%. Of the other 3% is QS1. And so we view that as a great example of the vehicle. We put together a program at the end of last year to help fund clinical services across the CPSN portfolio. And so we'll work with networks like that to try to drive the behavior that we think is healthy. In that particular example, we think pharmacies providing clinical services are one of the ways to save and revitalize independent pharmacy, and we'll work with CPSN to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Jeff, would you answer that?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, we try to be a huge enabler of CPSN, and one of those is the opportunities they come up, and they're different. So the CPS opportunities are mostly regional opportunities. So Missouri comes up with a regional opportunity for them, and hopefully we can be, probably about half of CPSN is on PioneerRx today, and you add QS1 that probably runs into your 60, maybe 70%. And so you want to be an enabler of those things. You want to try to support and put the things in the pharmacy system that they have. Or that they need in order to do that. And we do a lot of work on the care goals and things like that. When you look at this kind of network, you're looking at more manufacturers and adherence type programs than you are looking at payers and getting the dollars, or like specialty, and doing things where somebody wants to offer something to pharmacies in the workflow of the pharmacy system that they couldn't offer. If a manufacturer went to a PSAO and say, hey, I want to offer this and have your members do it, I can't even imagine how they would try to get that done. One of the PSOs was talking to us last week about, hey, how can we help get more of our members doing MedSync? Because they can't help their members do more MedSync. MedSync has to be easy, has to be in their workflow, and that kind of thing. So it's different and complementary, I think.
One of the things, Jeff, you said that it almost has to be accidental.
Yep.
And just a note I jotted down is with independence, we want to be independent, but yet there needs to be some accidental uniformity. There has to be that consistency.
Correct.
And, whether it's, the technology can provide that uniformity. So when you're providing data back to whomever is interested in that data, that there's some uniformity. It's not all over the map.
And I would say you can't build uniformity through contract. You can't build uniformity to agreement. Lots of people have signed up for different contracts and do things 20 different. The only way, and that's why you heard Kraig say he believes the only way that you can really save and revitalize independent pharmacies is through technology. The only way that you can deliver consistency is through technology.
So related to that, vertical integration of primary care. I mentioned this presentations I've been doing, and this is a big theme of one of the presentations I'm doing. Vertical integration of primary care, and just as examples for listeners, CVS is probably the most quote unquote classic example in our galaxy because of CVS Caremark now buying Aetna. That is vertical integration of primary care. They're controlling that patient journey. Walgreens has gotten into the act with VillageMD. Which is a bunch of primary care docs that they've been acquiring, spending billions and billions of dollars on that. Walmart's gotten into the act. They've been kind of dabbling in it for years, but I think by the end of this decade, they want to have over 2,500 primary care sites, either on location or in their parking lots or wherever they would have them. So it's no secret, controlling the patient journey is what everyone's trying to do, whether it's CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, or that big health system in your town, or that big health plan. So the question is, it sounds like this is on your radar in spades. What tools are you developing to help position independent pharmacies play a bigger role in primary care and with these vertically integrated networks?
Yeah, it's an interesting and sensitive issue. We've explored some things like helping some of our pharmacies with some telehealth partners, because one of the models there, somebody comes in, they seem like they have the flu. I can give them a flu test right here, and if it's positive, I put them on a telehealth visit, and then I can dispense them a Tamiflu or something like that. One of their challenges there is a lot of independent pharmacies. A lot of them have strong relationships with local healthcare providers who see this as competition, and a lot of our pharmacies are in more rural settings where the Walgreen Health Initiative isn't really the competitor. So how does that factor in? I know I was I have avoided getting a GP for some years now. I pretty much just every year went and got my blood done, and I'm healthy. And it's like, hey, as long as everything looks good, I don't need to take the time to go do this because somehow I like to be at work. But I finally broke down and did that this year. And so I told her, well, this happened. Well, how'd you do that? Well, I had a telehealth visit. And she's like, oh, we have telehealth. You can call in here and we'll get you in telehealth any time of the day. I can't call there and get an appointment, but now I can get telehealth there. So what you're hoping is these relationships that these pharmacies have with these local doctors, that the technology will come along where they can have a telehealth solution related to that, and they can build those with those partnerships that they already have, rather than trying to create something of their own. Long term, I think some of that leapfrogs, and it's going to be a portion of that's going to be telehealth.
Yeah. I mean, we tried working with the telehealth early on that we were going to try to integrate into the RX Local app. And there was just things that weren't willing to talk on their side. And we were really excited about that, but it just didn't work out. But
and the struggles, though, as we talk to pharmacies, that some pharmacies wouldn't want to support it.
Right. They don't want to support it.
Because they feel like that would upset their local relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I also think ultimately, from a technology standpoint, there are a couple things that I've mentioned a couple times. Kind of, we're working on what I'd characterize as a more innovative communication platform between pharmacies and in the industry, and across pharmacies. I think linking real-time communication between pharmacies and providers is going to be an important element, both text, video, and audio. And so I'll just kind of tease that out a little bit. We're working on some tools that I think are going to be really, really important to that. I also think part of the reason we've developed a next generation switch is I think ultimately the transaction side of that needs to be a lot more integrated between the medical and pharmacy benefit. We've got a lot of work to do there, but the step one was building an architecture that makes that possible. We've looked at the solutions out in the market for a long time and just didn't believe that there was anything that was built on an architecture enough that you could integrate rapidly enough. And so I think those two technologies that we're working on become really important to help pharmacies. I don't think we should be advocating a national strategy around that. To Jeff's point, I think as I'm learning the independent pharmacy market, it's very local, and the strategies are going to be very local. But we've got to create kind of the pipes and the tools to enable each of these local and regional strategies. I think a lot of it is going to be partnerships with local and regional hospitals, primary care providers, and health systems as a solution to that, because many of those facilities, frankly, don't welcome or want the Walgreens and CVS solutions either. And so I think there's a natural relationship that should flourish out of that.
Yeah, and just one thing I'd say keep your eye on, if it's not already on it, is, and I saw it in my own hometown where the local health system was gobbled up by a bigger health system, which was gobbled up by a bigger health system, which was gobbled up. And so all these local relationships that we had were gone.
Yeah.
Because it's up in some corporate, suite somewhere all the way down to, my small hometown. And great frustration. I mean, talking to my parents about healthcare in their hometown is not a fun experience. They're not very happy with it. So I agree that it's all local, but I do get concerned about these conglomerates gobbling everything up. And so really limiting those local choices where the local guys have not no freedom, but less choice than they had before to work with their local, the local people who are doing the job.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a telehealth. Some of our pharmacies will adopt a telehealth relationship where they have a preferred telehealth provider that they work with for patients that come in and solve problems that way.
I'm going to pivot a little bit. I know we're getting close to a wrap here, but I'm going to test the bromance here. It's kind of like the newlywed game, I guess. Kraig, who is Jeff's favorite business author?
Well, I don't know who his favorite author is. I'll tell you the one that he talks the most about is Zig Ziglar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I as I was writing this question, I was thinking, I think he talks about him a lot. But I also have heard him talk about Simon Sinek.
Pretty
a lot
good,
too.
Yeah, because those are the two I would have said as you said that. Very good.
He's a big fan of From Good to Great, as am I. We share a few different books that we like.
Well, on Simon Sinek, in his book, he starts the Starts with Why book, or Start with Why.
Yep.
He talks about the difference between novelties and innovation. And one of the examples that he gives, and it's a little outdated, but I think we can all relate to it, is the Motorola Razr phone from probably 15 years ago, the flip phone. So when it came out, it was a sensation. It was super popular, sold millions and millions of units. It was the first to have a metal case, a flat keyboard, no antenna. Everything about that was new. And then 3 or 4 years later, Motorola Mobile went the way of the dodo bird. Acquired by Lenovo, gone. So Sinek's point is that all these cool things that the Motorola Razr had were novelties and not true innovations. So the question is, what pharmacy management system features would you say are novelties? I mean, because not everything can be an innovation. And then what things are innovations? And this just proves we didn't vet these questions in advance.
Yeah, wow, that's
a deep one.
I know. I saw Craig's head roll back. He's like, "Wow, that's a loaded question. Where do I start?"
That's because my default reaction was, everything comes full circle. The flip phones are back in vogue now that they innovated the glass, right?
Right. Yeah, they're really trying to.
Yeah, but I've heard that it's not going great, that it's still smashing because people think, oh, great, I'll fold it and put it in my back pocket, and then it's like crunch.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not exactly the same because you can't upgrade hardware with the whole and change their form factor with software. I mean,
that's still a novelty, not an innovation.
Yeah, I would probably say most things in the pharmacy system are novelties. There are things, efficiency stuff is novelties.
We've always followed innovation as far as soon as the iPads came out, we instantly went, great, we need to get an iPad and we need to program to that iPad. The little sensor that for people to put at the front of the door to create hey, this patient just walked in.
That Apple killed.
Yep, that Apple, as soon as Apple put it out there, we instantly programmed it in, they killed it. We've always jumped on these innovations because somebody's going to go, oh, this new iPhone's really cool and I want the new iPhone and I want my patients to be able to use it. And we've always jumped on all the technology out there and brought that into Pioneer. And it's kind of novelty-ish.
Doug, you're going to cost me a lot of brain cycles over this one. Just telling you, this is going to keep going after today. Because
I think innovation can also be defined as if it fundamentally changes the way you work or live. And if you think in that lens, I would submit to you as an example, while fairly utilitarian, I think MedSync is a wonderful innovation in pharmacy management systems that, if done right, changes the whole way you run your pharmacy at a fairly dramatic level, actually. And I think most people would say that's not an innovation. And I'd say, well, no, you go to a pharmacy that implements MedSync really well and one that doesn't.
I love that.
No, that's true.
That's very true,
because it's not a novelty. It's not just a fashion.
It's not just a novel. It's not a novelty that's like, oh, hey, that's cool, and now it's going away. It's a novelty that you nailed it on the head, that it changes the way you do your business and it improves it.
Yep. Thank you, NCPA, by the way.
Yeah. The depth of integration of the workflow in Pioneer is an innovation, in my opinion. You go watch a pharmacist's day when they're in workflow with Pioneer versus other systems, and I did a lot of that before we made the investment in Pioneer, and it's a dramatically different day in the life of a pharmacist. And I think all of those pieces coming together is what's innovative in that system.
And then you look at pharmacies doing CPSN and in tangent with the MedSync, and it's mind-blowing, and it's just completely different for that pharmacy.
Absolutely. And some of the examples Sinek uses in his book is for Apple, iTunes. He references that as that turning the industry upside down, that segment of the industry, the tablet.
Well, that was Napster.
Like that.
And LimeWire.
He turned it upside down.
Yeah, Napster and LimeWire. I'm gonna wait an hour for one song to download onto a CD.
By the way, I just found my original Walkman device in a box in my house. I was super excited.
Yeah.
Oh my! They still sell Walkmans at the grocery store.
It had a Journey tape still in it.
Oh my gosh!
Hey, don't stop believing, man. So we started the podcast with the question about the investment, and that's really sort of the inspiration behind these reverse podcasts, is to talk about the investment. So you mentioned Francisco Partners, and Jeff, you mentioned the experience of the guy in the bar that came up to you, and I'm not intimate with all the different private equity companies, but I hear names that come up in different circles. And Francisco Partners, they owned or invested in Cover My Meds. They own parts of GoodRx. They're very active in the healthcare space. Job of a good private equity company, and again, everything from what I read and hear, Francisco Partners is very good at what they do, which is to make money for their investors. So what's in store for the company's future, for RedSail's future, and how will independence stay as the most important thing to RedSail going forward?
First thing we did is we committed that we were going to out-invest in this market, and we made that commitment, and we're going to continue to do it. So the first good thing that happened is we have been spending more dollars in technology development than has ever been spent in this space, and core to our strategy is doing that. So you will continue to see an outflow of new technology coming out of RedSail. That's, in my opinion, probably the singular best thing Francisco Partners can do, is continue to enable that. That only happens if we continue to be successful, and I think it's kind of a circular reference formula in technology businesses, and so that's over the next several years what you should expect from us. People always ask me, will Francisco Partners someday sell RedSail? Of course they will, with 100% certainty. Like that's the business model Francisco Partners has, and I've been privileged to be a part of that probably 5 or 6 times now, and every time Francisco Partners made the company better, and we sold to somebody that made the company even better. The first business I sold with Francisco Partners was we had carved out a business from McKesson in the health system space, branded that Ascent, and we invested in IV robotic technology. We invested in cross health system inventory management, procurement technology, and then we ultimately sold that business to Omnicell. Back then, Omnicell's market cap was about $1 billion. Right now, it's about $7.7 billion. And every one of the products they purchased from Ascent, they invested in, and the customers are a lot better off for it. And so you have to be willing to change the market. You started this discussion on, what change, good or bad. I'd say in every investment Francisco Partners makes, they're trying to change the market by design. And we are very much trying to change this market. We're not trying to have it stay stagnant.
Yeah, and there are people, what's interesting and honest when we have discussions, there are people out there who, believe it or not, don't believe that independent pharmacy has a future. And Francisco, to have value in their investment, not only does the company have to be good, but the market has to be good, right? So you have to have as much energy and investment in independent pharmacy and being a market that people believe in and believe can be successful as you are in making your books match up and what your profit is.
Yes.
Yeah. When we make an investment, we value three things. And if you look at the returns, it's first, is it a good market? Second, is it a great team? And third, is it a great product? Because great markets and great teams can fix and innovate products. And when we looked at the independent market, our view was people are missing out. They're missing the opportunity here. I've got a slide that shows everybody believes, you talk pharmacy, everybody believes it's CVS and Walgreens. And I show that, the 10,000, the 8,000 little bar chart. Well, the next slide is, but here's the 40,000 pharmacies that are the real market that deliver care in this country. And that's the market that's being underserved right now. And so our thesis was that there are 40,000 pharmacies that are being underserved. We just need to figure out how to point an investment towards solutions.
Good answers. So I appreciate the time today, Marsha, Jeff, Kraig. Thanks for letting me take the wheel of, it's your podcast, but I'm, I guess, renting the car. I'm not renting. I'm not paying you guys anything. So just.
All right. So how did you feel this went?
So the whole point of us continuing to invite you in to host the podcast is, to hold us accountable. So what is our grade for this quarter?
Yeah, you graded us last time, Doug.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
See, I need to go back and listen to what I
Last time we got a B+.
So just based on member feedback, I would say it's a B.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, hey, a B is good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was my daughter, I'd ask you, how do we get an A?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even ask my kids that. I'm just so excited when they come in with a B and not something lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
we're A students.
My daughter, if she got a 99, she's going to be setting a time in the teacher's office to say, how did this happen and how did this not happen again?
My daughter does that as well.
So how do we get the A?
Yeah, I wish. Unfortunately, that's not genetic in my family, at least to my kids. How do you get an A? So, again, a B is very good. So I'm not, I think you're continuing to, I think you're continuing to grow market share, at least the reports that I read from you guys.
Yeah, had our best year ever last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, best year ever last year.
Yep. So, I think it may be impossible to get an A with the independent pharmacy marketplace, because there's going to be, Jeff, you mentioned you've got 150 users on some product, and it may not make sense for you to, use that service that they're using. So there's, it's hard to be perfect. It's hard to get everyone. I think that the caveat on the A is that, hey, if you get an A and then 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, it's RedSail sold to X and we don't like X, then I guess some of that cautionary note is, hey, you gave us an A 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So there is always that concern, sometimes on the verge of paranoia, because let's just say you guys own Francisco owns the RedSail for 5 more years. And in those 5 years, you do wonderful things. You walk on water. But then at the end of 5 years, you sell it to someone that no one knows about. People are going to forget the 5 years of awesomeness, and they're going to focus on that point in time. So it's a tough market when you've got private equity as an owner, but again, I'm not hearing complaints. I have heard complaints in the past when private equity took over, and I saw people vote with their feet. I'm not seeing that with your company. So be happy with a B, I guess is.
No way.
I'm not happy with the B because we went from a B+ to a B.
Yeah, it's all right. Doug and I, we'll talk some more.
All right. I got some work to do.
We had for the control room, B is for boo.
Yeah.
I had to repeat that.
So we talk about the 99 and you obsessed. So in English, I took a freshman English class and I got like a 92 or something. And I was in the teacher's office saying, well, wait a second, I should have gotten a 94, 96 because of this and this and this. And she's the first person, not the last, to say, you're obsessive, So you guys are a little obsessive here. I took it as a compliment.
As we should be.
You should take it the same way.
All
right. Thank you.
I'm going to be obsessing.
It's always good to see you. How did multi turn out? I heard the best attendance ever.
I don't know about ever, but at least in the last 10 years, maybe ever.
Yeah.
It was great vibe.
Yeah, the vibe was good.
Saturday morning, sometimes it's a little light on attendance at 9 a.m. because people have been, being overly happy the night before. I looked out in the room and it was full. It was full. So people came back and, just a lot of heads nodding at the appropriate times or whispering to their neighbor, what about this? Keyboards tapping, good stuff.
Yep. Awesome. You do a great event. Thanks for
Doug,
being with us today.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you next time.
Pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more pharmacy professionals like you.